Morning everybody, and welcome back to Indycar. On the day that Nicola Sturgeon is supposed to be making an announcement, we don't know what the announcement will be, and I don't even know exactly when the announcement will be. But in spite of all that, I wanted to broadcast a little short piece to you this morning about the costs of both Brexit versus the cost of continuing to stay in the EU. Now, I've done a little bit of calculating today, and my basic arithmetic is based on what the UK is currently paying every week to remain a member of the EU, and this is a net payment after we get back various various subsidies for things like farming and fisheries and other regional assistance funds. So what I base this on is about 8.4% of what the UK currently pays into the EU budget being allocated to, say, Scotland becoming a member. Now, it may not exactly match what Scotland would pay as an independent country. It might be slightly more or slightly less, but roughly speaking, Scotland pays, and I've got the paper here, Scotland would pay a roughly £166 per person per year to be a member of the EU at the moment. So it's just around the same figure, but slightly more than a television licence for every single working person in Scotland, or every person of voting age, I should say, to be a member of the European Union. That's what we're paying at the moment, about £166 per person per year. Now that's pretty low. I think you'll agree that your heating bills are a good deal bigger than that, your food bills an awful lot bigger than that, and I'm sure your electricity bills are 10 times that. So we're talking about a fairly small sum of money. But how does that stack up against the various options available to the UK government with Brexit? Well, the UK government's own Department for National Statistics prepared 3 different scenarios and costed them all in terms of how much it would cost per household in Scotland, in fact, across the UK, in fact, for each one of these 3 various options. And the first one was what would be termed a Danish or Norwegian model. This is a model where Britain would become part of a free trade area, and it would have access to the single market and the customs union. Now, this would allow the United Kingdom to trade into and out of the European Union, but without membership. Its cost, according to the British government's figures, is approximately £3,200 per year per household. Now, if you imagine that each household might contain, say, 2 adults of voting age, then that's going to look like about £1,500 to £1,600 a year, which is 10 times what we're paying to be in the European Union at the moment. And this is the best case scenario, incidentally. This is the cheapest deal that the UK thinks it can get. And that's assuming, always assuming, that the United Kingdom would agree to free movement of people. Now, it's unlikely that that would happen, and the other 2 options available after that involve the Canadian model, which would be access to the single market only, without a customs union, as far as I understand it. So very, very limited access to the single market. And the cost of that, apparently, would be somewhere in the region of £4,000 a year, maybe slightly higher than that, slightly lower than that. So we're talking there about £2,000 a head per year for each household. So if you've got 2 people in a household, you're talking about £2,000 each per year is the cost of this this Canadian model, as they call it, okay? And the final and the most, I think, scary one of all is the hard Brexit, leaving Europe without any deal whatsoever in place. What was it going to cost each and every one of the UK's adults? Now, according to the United Kingdom's own figures, and this is government figures from the UK's own statistical analysis, this is going to cost £5,000 per household per year for us to continue to trade using what's known as World Trade Organization rules. These are the basic rules of trade on how much taxation has to be applied to goods coming in and also going out of the United Kingdom and into and out of the European Union. So the cost of trade with the World Trade Organization is enormously high, £5,000 per household in the UK. So each individual in Scotland would be looking at a £2,500 bill each £5,000 per household. Could you afford that? You're currently paying £166. I think you can see that the math doesn't stack up here. Now, no matter what any British nationalists or Little Englanders tell you about Brexit meaning getting your power back, being able to make your own decisions, it comes at an enormous cost. Now, what would happen if we were independent? Well, if we were independent and we continued to be members of the European Union, then our fee would vary probably. It would be slightly higher than it is now, but we can negotiate. That's the interesting thing about it. If you're independent, you can negotiate your own membership of the EU based on your population, based on your gross domestic product, your growth rate. A lot of factors come into account when you join the EU. And bear in mind that Scotland already completely fulfills every single requirement for an EU country because we're already members, remember? So we're already abiding by every single rule that they have. And our continuation as members would be effectively to commute our current British membership and to come up with a new, slightly streamlined and more tailored deal for Scotland. But at the same time, it might cost slightly more or slightly less, but it's not going to be thousands of pounds. It's going to be, I would say, roughly the same as it is now. £166 per person per year, maybe up to £200 per person per year, but it certainly is not going to cost over £2,500 each person, and certainly it's not going to cost each household £5,000. So I think if anybody out there is still in any doubt about whether independence is better than Brexit, just add up the arithmetic. You can go and research this yourself at the Office for National Statistics and look at the figures that they have produced, their estimates for what Brexit in those three different possibilities that are available to the UK negotiators. Of those three, all of them, every single one of them is at least an order of magnitude higher than we're paying now. It's at least 10 times what we're paying now. Is it worth it? Is it worth paying £5,000 out of your pocket every single year just so that you're attached to the United Kingdom? I don't think so. I think that is a Brexit tax, and this Brexit tax of £5,000 a year, or at the minimum £3,000 a year per household, is a price that's far too high for almost every household in Scotland. Most people in Scotland are getting by on below average salaries. The average salary in Scotland, I believe, is something in the region of the mid-20s, 26,000, something like that. It's far, far lower than it is in the rest of the UK. We can't afford an extra £5,000 a year in taxation to cover the cost of Brexit. But that's what will happen. Either that or all of our services will be cut to pay for this Brexit tax. Either way, we either have fantastically austere conditions with almost no services, or we pay a massive taxation to cover the cost of Brexit. So there's something for you to think about. I hope when Nicola makes her announcement today, and if it is a countdown to the next referendum, you will all share what I've said to you today with friends, with relatives and workmates, and get them to think about it, because the cost of Brexit is 10 times the cost of remaining in the EU. I'll speak to you later on, but let's wait and see what Nicola says today, and hopefully I'll have a broadcast response for you either later today or tomorrow. Bye for now.